Greetings, Mike Lee here from Detroit, Michigan. It's great to be here with you virtually. I am going to spend the next 40 or so minutes talking about the future of food and AI, and trying to take a little bit of a look of where we are today in this world of AI and where we could be in the near future and how it pertains to us in the food industry. First, a little bit about me. I'm the principal futurist of an organization called the Future Market. The Future Market is focused on helping companies, food companies specifically, understand and prepare for the technologies and trends that are really 5 to 10 years away from becoming fully mature, but have big impacts on how we act today in the food industry. My background is in technology, but I've worked exclusively on food for over the last decade. And I think we're at a really important time in the food industry where I think so much of our personal and planetary health and well-being depends on the food industry. And there's so much kind of new ideas and innovation that is trying to shape the way we grow and consume food. And really, we help companies navigate that whole kind of nexus of innovations and technologies and things like that in food. One of the things that really inspired the way we look at food, and we attack some of these problems, looking at the future of food, was my upbringing in Detroit and the Detroit Auto Show, which is a show that happened annually, still happens today. And I would go to it as a kid growing up every year, but I wasn't really so much a car fanatic as I was obsessed with the idea of concept cars. Um, the concept car program really kind of influenced how we approach looking at innovation in food today, because I was first and foremost staggered at how an industry as big and large and complicated as the auto industry could spend a lot of time creating this vision, this artifact of the future that was a concept car. And it wasn't for sale. The point of it wasn't to make revenue off of this concept car right now, but it was a really kind of thoughtful and thorough exploration of where the future of that industry could hold. I wanted to bring that same spirit to food. And while people kind of manage the day to day and the short term things, which are very important and really crucial to the growth of our industry, I wanted to make sure we were also having an opportunity to look deeper ahead into the future, to kind of have better visions of what that future could hold. And really, we've distilled that into a saying that influences us a lot, which is better innovation today in food. It starts with more ambitious thinking about tomorrow. And what I want to do today is share with you some of those ambitious thoughts and ideas about tomorrow, in order to hopefully change the way you think about today and change the way that you might do things in the near future. I want to talk about the current and future state of AI as it relates to the food and agriculture industry globally. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the current state of AI in food, and where it's already making an impact. Then I want to provide insight on what the future might hold if AI continues to mature at the rate that most people expect it to. I want to start with a saying that's been very commonplace in the AI world, which is AI won't replace humans, but humans with AI will replace humans without AI. Now, it's rare that we get a technology that is so fundamentally powerful and flexible that it has the potential to change almost everything we do. In my lifetime, the internet in general was the last technology of this kind, and no industry after the invention of the internet could really escape its impact. And at the heart, the internet was all about connectivity and democratizing access to information. So, therefore, every profession that relied on an element of connectivity or information was impacted. And obviously, every profession really relies on connectivity and information. And so, no one could really escape the impact of what the internet had to offer. AI, I think, is one of those technologies like the internet where it has a general capability to fundamentally change everything. But instead of AI offering us enhanced connectivity and information access, AI's main kind of value driver is that it's a source of cognitive power. Enhanced cognitive power for all that use it. AI, I look at as a force multiplier for thinking. And any industry that requires thinking will be impacted by it, which is everything. So, why pay attention to AI in food and ag? Well, of course, any of the kind of cognitive functions that we have to perform in deciding what to do in food, AI has an impact on it. But I think we can also look at how the internet revolutionized food in a lot of ways and kind of look at that as a model for what AI could do. Because eaters and everyone across the supply chain in food had the internet and they had all this access to new information and data. What it did, it really kind of sent a reverberating effect throughout the food system. People were empowered with information. They started demanding more of their food. They started paying more attention to ingredient labels, paying more attention to nutrition, the way things were made. And whether or not you kind of were really deeply involved in the internet or not, that kind of ability on the consumer end really flowed all the way up to the growers having to kind of change the way they grow things and change the way that food products are sort of formulated because of this consumer that has a new power that was the internet. I think similarly, AI can have a very analogous kind of impact where if everyone kind of has this enhanced cognitive ability to kind of ask deeper questions about food, create new things with food, I think that'll have a reverberating effect across all parts of the supply chain, not just consumers, not just manufacturers, but distribution, growers, everyone like that. So really, I see AI as just as a kind of a fundamental change that's on par with the invention of the internet in terms of its ability to kind of create sweeping changes throughout an industry. I think it serves us to spend just a quick second on kind of framing out or defining kind of two specific flavors of AI that I think kind of constitute most of the AI tools out there right now, and that's looking at generative versus non-generative AI. Both of these things have huge kind of powers and abilities to it. But just as we look forward at some of the innovations, it's useful just to know these things in mind. Non-generative AI has been around for a little bit longer than generative AI, but essentially it's a type of AI that analyzes and interprets data without creating new data. So anytime you've heard somebody talk about big data processing with AI, that's essentially using non-generative AI to look at data that already exists and then drawing out conclusions, information, things like that. But again, it doesn't create new data. It just kind of creates information from existing data. Generative AI, on the other hand, is a type of AI that creates new data. It is something that has been trained on data that already exists, but it doesn't just regurgitate that data that it already read through, so to speak. It uses that information to create completely new stuff that didn't exist before, whether that be text, images, video, audio, you name it. And generative AI has been getting a lot of the attention today, but a lot of the non-generative AI tools have been doing things for years now that have been very, very interesting. To put it kind of succinctly, as a using a food metaphor, non-generative AI is something that sort of would look in your pantry, so to speak, and come up with a recipe based off of the things that are there for you, right? It would give you ideas on what to do with things you already have in your stores, whereas generative AI is something that would create a new recipe from scratch for you, something that didn't exist, something that doesn't have any kind of frame of reference. And so I think these two kind of flavors of AI are really useful to kind of understand, differentiate as we go forward. At the end of the day, AIs of all kinds are really just pattern recognition machines. When you think about ChatGPT or any other generative AI, it was designed to mirror how humans learn, which is that over our lifetimes, we read things, we speak to people, we have experiences. And through all of those experiences and readings, we were collecting data, and our brains cognitively turn that data into some kind of story or interpretation, which is really information. And we do that over the development of our lives, and it's by and large kind of intuitive. Now, when people started creating the latest generation of AIs, they use the way that neurons are wired in your brain as a kind of a metaphor for how they organize the code. And as such, AIs learn in a very, very similar way, which is they are fed a ton of information, whether written information, image, audio, video, what have you. Um, and it looks through all of that stuff and it synthesizes that into patterns, right? If you give an AI enough books to read, just like you give enough books to a human to read, it's going to learn how to not only read but write, because it's been able to recognize patterns of how sentences and things like that are formed. The difference is that AIs do it at a scale and a speed and a breadth that no human could ever sort of imagine. The latest version of ChatGPT was trained on billions and billions of pages of text, where if the average human was reading as fast as a human possibly could, it would take more than many, many thousands of lifetimes to be able to read all of that stuff. So that's the kind of one big advantage an AI has, is that it can just simply swallow more data than any human could ever do, and from that infer patterns from that also humans wouldn't be able to do. So when looking specifically at AI in food and agriculture, there's four main categories of things that I've seen AI can do, which is optimization, discovery, prediction, and creation. I'm going to go through each one of these individually with some insights and examples, what's happening in each category, and then I'll leave off at the end with some glimpses of things to keep in mind for the future. Optimization is probably one of the most common things that AI has been used to do to date. Um, this is really defined as simply helping to adjust the variables in a system and processes to achieve some kind of outcome that is subject to certain constraints. So, optimizing for yield on a farm, reducing resource usage, things like that. Anytime you're looking to increase efficiency in any sort of process, AI can help you optimize for that. One of the broadest categories that's had a big impact already on food and ag over the past two decades is that there's been an explosion of many different software platforms that have been aimed at helping farmers manage their operations. Like so many other industries where dashboards and software as a service tools exist to organize things, farming is no different. Now, there are many of these platforms out there. I'm showing on the screen a screenshot from one particular platform called FieldView, but there's a cursory list of a handful of other prominent farm management platforms. And, while this talk is not about kind of a comparison of the pros and cons between each of the platforms, they all kind of have their specific strengths and weaknesses. I just want to focus more high level on the general utility and their role in kind of changing how food is grown. Now, at the broadest definition, farm management software is really digital platforms that help collect, store, and visualize field data. It can use AI to look at that data to create insights on things to plant, health of crops, optimizing harvest, optimizing resource use. They exist to collect a diverse set of data from a farm and turn that into that data into actionable intelligence. Um, One of the most powerful features of these platforms is that not only can you find patterns and insights within the data collected on your farm, a lot of these platforms can also take anonymized data from other farms and generate advice on what to do. So, it not only gives growers the ability to benefit from their own successes and failures, but it gives you the ability to benefit from the successes and failures of a whole network of farms, right? And so, in a way, you're sort of using using this to kind of crowdsource best practices because it can kind of loop in data about yields from places in your area, and you can compare and contrast your specific yields per se, and kind of see if you're behind, at par, or ahead of the game, and then think about reasons why you might be where you're at in relation to other things. Farmers have always talked and traded ideas since the beginning of farming, but I think what these platforms really do is they amplify that idea exchange by expanding the amount of data that's taken into account, and also removing the emotion from decision making. We can kind of lean into the fact that they're very cold calculating machines to help us with the most logical decisions possible. Now, for proponents of the precision farming movement, I think the future dream of this area of ag tech is to be able to one day connect all the data points from all the farms in the world and use AI to be able to mine that data for useful insights, sort of creating a hive mind of growers everywhere. I think to have best practices happen on a farm in India, say, be instantly shared to farmers in Australia and vice versa, or any other place in the world, I think is a powerful concept, right? And since AI really feeds on data, all of that kind of data collection can actually make sense to us because we can use AI to help us interpret it and turn that data into actual stuff we can use and act on. All of this kind of encompasses, a section of ag tech called precision farming, and there's new and old kind of industry stalwarts like John Deere, getting involved in this process, but there's also been kind of entrants like Google X's Mineral, which is a startup that was incubated inside of Google X, their moonshot factory. And really, this is a startup that's an integrated system of automated farm robots, sensors, and a data platform with really powerful kind of Google influenced AI to help optimize the farming operation. And so I think one of the points of view of Google X's Mineral is to be able to feed the world most efficiently by using technology and intelligence to optimize everything that is happening on a farm. Now, alongside the growth of digital farm management solutions, sensors have become a crucial tool. AI is really nothing without data. It feeds on data, and these sensors are the things that capture that data on an ongoing basis. Collecting the amount of data that would be useful for an AI and for relationships and insights, it would be extremely arduous for humans to kind of hand capture this stuff and maintain it, that it would almost defeat the purpose of kind of using machines and automation to kind of do some of these things. So as kind of farm management software, precision farming, as these kind of things grow, the industry around sensors of all forms, whether it be drones or soil sensors, more of these are going to exist in the future to collect the data that's going to fuel these things. So, it's a big part that of the future of farming that I think we'll start to see a little bit more. And really, in short, the ability to harness AI computing power to make sense of millions of data points about a particular farm, it's probably the biggest thing that will help transform how we grow food as a society over the next decade and beyond. So optimization is the first major category of things that AI has and will be able to do in food. The second major category of what AI can do in food and ag is to assist with discovery. Discovery really is just looking at identifying potentially valuable trends and patterns in large data sets. While the identification of these kinds of trends is a big part of the optimization process, like we just talked about, it can also help food innovators discover new compounds and crops that have potentially interesting uses. One of the areas that AI has been used recently to great effect is in the area of ingredient and compound discovery. I'm showing two screenshots here from two different companies. Right on the on the left side is Notco, which is a Chilean plant-based FMCG company that produces a host of plant-based products like plant-based milks and other things like that. Now, to create these products, It uses a homegrown AI system that they created called Giuseppe to mine vast databases of ingredients to look for non-obvious molecules in food that can be potentially used to create more high-quality plant-based analogs. Another company, Bright Seed Systems, which is on the right here, they used AI to discover two valuable bioactive compounds called NCT and NFT inside of hemp hulls. NCT, NFT have been, the subject of two big preclinical studies where they've been able to show a really remarkable ability to clear fat from the livers of mice and in human cells, right? And so, 75% of the world's food we consume is from 12 plants and 5 animal species, right? Which means there's a really long tail of food that is not as well studied and potentially holds really interesting properties. This, of course, creates a needle in the haystack problem because there's just tens of thousands of different foods out there that are potentially edible. But when looking for compounds like this, the sheer kind of work it takes to kind of analyze them one by one is pretty daunting and staggering. So AI is something, again, it's a pattern recognition machine, and it can kind of chew through a database of millions of different compounds and things like that to kind of help accelerate that needle in the haystack problem and find that one compound that has interesting properties like the NCT or NFT, or find that one compound that helps make a plant-based milk taste a little bit more like an animal-based milk. Another innovation in the discovery kind of zone is from the Bionutrient Food Association. They created a technology called the bionutrient meter. In short, this is a handheld spectrometer that can give you nutritional information on a host of produce items, some of which are listed on the screen, but they're looking to expand this and more. And so while this doesn't use AI per se, this is a sensor, and so it does directly feed into enabling AI to do its thing. It makes the process of capturing real nutritional info from crops much faster. Let's say you had a beetroot, you could simply shine this on a cut surface of the beetroot and pretty quickly get a full nutritional breakdown of what that beetroot held. This data can be fed into an AI system that can help find cause and effect relationships between a food's nutritional composition and maybe the way it was grown. Again, another data set that exists probably somewhere else. But this data set about the nutritional component is sort of the completion of a feedback loop to say, okay, well, we did X, Y, and Z things on the farm to create these plants. How did that impact the nutritional density of the food that came out of it? Again, this process is something that exists today, but this bionutrient meter is designed to be cheap, affordable, and potentially kind of be used by consumers as well too, to kind of go around supermarkets and things like that to look at foods and kind of analyze their nutritional quality in real time in a quick thing. So again, while it's not AI, it reduces the barriers to collecting data that feeds AI. And the success and the proliferation of things like this creates more things for AI to kind of chew on, which, over time is going to make AI smarter and help us make better decisions as it relates to growing practices and creating nutrient-dense food. Similar to the handheld spectrometer, the field of computer vision assisted by AI has become quite sophisticated over the past few decades. One company, but there's many like it, like this company Agrio, they leverage everyday cameras on phones to look at plants that help identify diseases. Now, while an experienced farmer probably has a really good handle on identifying the most common diseases that affect their plants on their farm, being able to plug this capability into a digital AI powered system allows that farmer to benefit from, again, the wisdom of a wider network, not to mention the computational ability of AI. So, a lot of these things replicate what I think good, smart farmers can do already today, but, it doesn't replace what they do. It augments it because, again, once you have this kind of data structured in a way that AIs and connected computers can kind of make use of, it amplifies your ability to be able to spot trends and look at patterns and things like that. So, these are kind of the second most prominent category of things that AIs can do in the field of helping with discovery. The third biggest thing is in the realm of prediction. Now, Prediction is essentially forecasting a set of potential likely values based off of input data. This is actually essentially what apps like ChatGPT do, is really predict the next piece of data that most logically follows a given set of data. So, it can do that because it's read so much text that has a really granular sense of what the next word in a sentence is. If I say something like the grass is always greener, and I stop at the grass is always blank, there's a high probability that you know that the next word is probably going to be greener, because it's just a phrase we know. Computers and like ChatGPT essentially have that same intuition, although they've done kind of that kind of regression analysis on trillions of different words and sentences to know that, like, okay, if somebody says the grass is blank, greener is a high likelihood of being the next word that comes in here. And it's done that for so many different sentences that it could write something as fluidly as a human can, and almost feel like it's speaking to us. So this is sort of a key kind of element of what AI is being able to do, is to predict the next kind of thing that might happen based off of past data. Climate modeling is probably one of the most prominent things that we are seeing right now. AI is being able to do. There's a handful of kind of players out there, but I think for me, the work that's being done at Google's DeepMind division, which is their AI division, has just shown is staggering, and it's one of the bright spots in the AI community. This is a shot from their climate water modeling tool called GraphCast. It's a weather modeling system that, when compared to the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasts, which has been in some places the industry standard for kind of weather modeling. It's already been able to show that it can beat that model about 90% of the time for some of the combinations that they can tested. So, again, climate modeling is a hugely complex thing, but I think some of the work that's being done at DeepMind in the research phase will eventually kind of trickle down into tools, everyday tools that we use. And I think we're going to be able to get a better sense on short, medium term forecasts, but also kind of understand better the patterns of what drives things like climate change and things like that. One of the coolest examples from DeepMind is actually not related to food. However, I think the lesson in this example can give you an impression of what AI could do for food, which is one of the early things that DeepMind did was, when in developing their AIs, was they trained it to play games. Now, games are interesting because they have very just discrete boxed-in rules. There's a finite set of rules. There's a specific objective. There's a specific start and an end. So when you're teaching someone to think and be intelligent, a game is a really good proving ground to do it, but it certainly has a lot of lessons for outside of gaming. The one moment when I really kind of realized that we were on a new track of AI was this scenario where AlphaGo, which was the name of the AI that DeepMind created to play the ancient game Go, they had a widely publicized competition with this guy on the screen here, Lee Sedol, who's a Korean guy. He was one of the best. He's one of the best human Go players in the history of the game, and it beat him in a best of five match, winning 4 out of 5 matches. But I think the fact that he beat the human wasn't that remarkable. We've seen this in the past with chess computers and things like that, but the most kind of remarkable thing was that in one of the rounds there was this one move 37, that the computer made that completely shocked all the humans playing this game. Lisa Dahl, the challenger, actually had to leave the room for 15 minutes to smoke a cigarette to kind of calm down from this. And essentially what they had saw was that the AlphaGo was playing as a robot might be expected to play, very kind of mechanical, logical moves up front. That move, which actually was the hinging move that allowed it to win the game, showed an insane amount of creativity, and they said that it was a move that no Go player would ever make. And because it worked, to me, this kind of spells a new generation of AI, where AI is not just a mirror of human intelligence and thought. It's not just regurgitating humans that have done great things before. It's now able to create original things that haven't existed before and humans could have never existed. I don't think any human who was playing Go would have thought to make that move and said it was a good move. But this was kind of the first example and many examples that followed of a computer being able to do things markedly new and different from a human. And I think it's a fact and a capability that you should be aware is in existence today, and it's something you should keep in mind as you kind of think about the different applications in food, because I think every industry following this is going to have a moment like this Go match where computers start doing things that fall outside of the ability and the framework of what a human could do. And I think that kind of spells for really interesting progress. DeepMind, of course, doesn't exist just to play games. I mean, a lot of the lessons that they learned from the Go playing machine was applied to looking at other scientific problems like solving protein folding structures, which is infamously known as one of the hardest problems in science. Google DeepMind AI, the same AI that played Go and chess so incredibly well, was able to predict the folding pattern of proteins at a humongously accurate and fast kind of rate. And this has enormous kind of implications in the future for things like drug discovery, and just understanding biochemistry and biology on a much deeper level. Now, all that kind of, again, comes back to food, because I think we've been kind of thinking and talking in the world of food for many years about this idea of precision nutrition. This idea where all of the inputs and outputs of a human body, meaning all the things I eat, all the things I do, my biometric stats and things like that, can we one day kind of feed that all into computers, so to speak, and have it kind of spit out a recommendation that tells us the right thing to eat next, right? Given a goal. I think by and large, if you asked me 5 years ago, kind of where were we at with that kind of notion of personalized nutrition, I would have said that it's kind of a pipe dream at this moment. I think having seen what's happened in the latest round of AI, generative AI specifically, I see this a lot more different. I think the idea of personalized nutrition, getting kind of fine-tuned food recommendations designed for you alone, is a much more realistic and probable thing that's going to happen here. There's been a big study by the National Institutes of Health here in the United States called the Nutrition for Precision Health. And they are looking at kind of how to use AI and things like that to make better food recommendations for humans and people. So again, something that started out as a technology playing a game turns into something that can very quickly be applied to everyday useful life for us. Now, the categories so far have focused primarily on using AI to turn data into information. Computers have the ability to digest huge sums of data and can see patterns that aren't always obvious or easy for humans to see. But this process helps us get the most out of data that already exists. But I think the most remarkable innovation over the past 5 years in AI has been the ability for AI to create new original information instead of simply processing information that humans have already created. I'd be remiss to not touch on kind of the implications of innovations like ChatGPT, which has kind of taken the world by storm. Of course, I think ChatGPT has become a mascot for generative AI in general, despite the fact that there are many other similar platforms that do the same thing in slightly different ways. The way I look at chatbots and their impact on food is that ChatGPT, first and foremost, was designed to be a generalist in terms of its knowledge base. Its main focus is to synthesize good text, which it does most of the time. And for anyone who has to write anything, it can be a really indispensable writing partner. I don't think it replaces human writing per se, but you can almost imagine ChatGPT as having a copywriting intern follow you around everywhere you are and help you with rough drafts or break writer's block and things like that. So, while ChatGPT might not be able to diagnose some specific issue you're having with one of your crops yet, it can definitely reduce the time spent writing anything else that's related to your food business, anything from social media posts to promote your brand to contracts, to just emails. So, first and foremost, without kind of having deep specific knowledge about food and agriculture, ChatGPT can potentially kind of free up a lot of mental overhead that's typically used for other things. And then you can reinvest that additional mental bandwidth, that time you've saved, into focusing on the main project at hand, which is growing and optimizing your food operation. Of course, also in the mix are a whole host of image generators, which as of now can produce much more remarkable results that I think chatbots can. I think, we're at a stage where I think generative AI is actually better at being creative than it is at being correct. I don't think that's going to last forever. I just think that's the place where we're at right now. But, I think in the world of imagery and things like that, sometimes you don't want the expected answer. Sometimes you want something a little bit different or askew, which if you're writing a contract or an email or something like that, something different or creative might not be desired, but with imagery, it might be. Right. And so that's just kind of an interesting insight to kind of think about right now is that, it's better at being creative today than it is at being correct. But I don't imagine that dynamic to exist forever. Now, the Farmers Business Network, based here in America, created a beta project that I'll encourage you to try out. They call it Norm. It's an AI ag advisor, and Norm is short for being named after Norman Borlaug. And essentially, what they did was they took a base kind of Chat GPT model that just knows how to speak and form sentences and things like that. And they gave it additional training on just mountains of agronomy data that they had, best practices, statistics, all kinds of other data around agronomy. And essentially, what they've created is a chatbot that is designed specifically for farmers. Now, this is in beta. It's buggy. It's not the end all be all. So I want you to temper your expectations if you go to try this here. But of all of the things in this, kind of deck, especially with creative applications of AI, I think the future lies in things like this, meaning the future of generative AI lies in having AIs that are trained on the data that means most to you. Like I said before, something like ChatGPT is designed to be a jack of all trades. It's designed to know a lot about a lot of different things, but it doesn't know a deep amount of kind of personally individual things or even things that are relevant to a company. It's increasingly easier than you might think, and I think you're going to see more of this in the next year, to see AIs like ChatGPT being fed additional data that is most relevant to a particular industry or company, and have it create a more specialized AI like this, right? So, whereas ChatGPT doesn't know a lot about soil science on the level that Norm does, Norm has tons of data on this stuff, and so you can kind of imagine one day that you'll do even better than Norm, and you'll have a chatbot that has maybe read and seen all of your records and logs from your farm for the last 2 decades, and can really know your operation specifically better than anyone else, and kind of make sense of this, more than kind of having these generalist chatbots kind of rule the AI landscape in the future. I think these personally kind of trained chatbots are more of the future, and I think this is where we're going to get the most utility as growers and as food practitioners out of different AIs when they're specifically engineered towards us. So these are the four major categories of what AIs can do really in food and agriculture. And a lot of this stuff has been, both happening in the past and today, but is also kind of early stage and happening tomorrow in terms of optimizing, discovering, predicting, and creating. But as we go forward, AI is a powerful tool, and with great power comes great responsibility. AI is a tool; it has no opinions. It can be used for great benefit or great harm. There's been a lot of kind of conversation around safety and delaying the progress that AI has been kind of making, and a lot of this is born out of the fact that while AI has a lot of benefits, it can also be used to create things like misinformation and really harmful content. I want to leave you today with an allegory about fundamentally transformative technologies that have created kind of unintended consequences. In food, there are many. Most notably, I think the set of technologies created during the Green Revolution come to mind that certainly fed a lot of people and avoided famines and things like that, but also promoted the heavy use of industrial agricultural methods with GMOs and synthetic inputs. And so, while those technologies really helped us optimize for yield, 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 they did also create negative externalities in the form of biodiversity loss and soil health degradation. And so, this allegory is really about the things that can happen when you focus on one dimension in a system, and how that creates negative externalities. In food, we've prioritized kind of yield and profits above all else, and that's certainly no judgment there. Those are things that are worth going after, but we also need to figure out how to engineer into the system, and potentially AI can help us as to how to do it in a more environmentally and kind of human health centered way. So there's a story in AI safety circles, and it underscores the dangers of embracing a technology too fully and letting it optimize for just one thing. And it has to do with paper clips. Um, Imagine deeper into the future that we as society, we've created what's called artificial general intelligence, which basically means AIs that are by definition infinitely much smarter than any human is right now, right? It can think more independently, it's more capable, it can marshal a lot of resources on its own. By definition, AGI, the intelligence gap between an AGI and humans is somewhat similar to the intelligence gap between you and your dog, right? We're so much more intelligent that dogs can't necessarily understand many of the things we do because we're just thinking at a higher cognitive level. That's sort of the same analogy for what AGI could be to humans, with us being the dogs in that instance. So imagine we have an AGI, and some enterprising worker at a company, maybe an office supply company, decides that they're going to use the general intelligence to make paper clips and make as many paper clips as possible. At first, the AI does all the usual things you would expect. It gets in at the factory, it looks at all the things the factory's doing, tries to optimize, tries to help discover new patterns and how it's making things. And over time, you've basically got a factory making paper clips as fast as humanly possible, as cheap as humanly possible, right? It gets to the point where it's making paper clips at such a pace it needs to start looking for more resources. It needs to start getting into mining operations and really looking for more sources of iron or recycling other things that can be turned into paper clips. Because again, the AI doesn't have an opinion or really feelings about anything. It was just simply told to do one thing, which was to maximize paper clips. Now, after a while, it keeps going on this, and then things kind of get turned for the worse. AIs really start realizing that, okay, well, we've run out of steel and iron to mine. We need to start looking into tearing down buildings and taking over cities and things like that. Because again, it's that objective of the paperclip. I need to look at everything in the world as something that being turned into a paperclip. The humans start getting a little bit worried about this. They try to turn it off. The AGI is smarter than us, so it realizes, like, okay, well, I can kill two birds with one stone, and I can start eradicating and liquefying humans because it'll prevent them from turning me off, which would obviously prevent me from meeting my goal of making as many paper clips as possible. But it could also learn to extract the minute amounts of iron from our bloodstreams and turn them into even more paper clips. All of this goes on and on and on until there's really nothing left in the world, and kind of this machine that we engineered was created to make paper clips sort of took the challenge too literally, and ultimately destroyed kind of everything. So Why am I telling this story? Now, it's fiction for sure, right? But it was a allegory that was framed by a Swedish philosopher named Nick Bostrom, who's one of the foremost thinkers on AI. And really, the point is underscoring the dangers in optimizing for just one thing in a complex system. Um, just like in the paperclip problem, where you told the machine to just do one thing and didn't give it any constraints or other things to optimize for. A lot of the industrial food system especially has kind of been engineered to do this as well too. We've kind of focused on yield at all costs, and while that brings us great wealth and things like that, it can also create kind of environmental issues, health issues, and resource dwindling and climate change and things like this. AI in food, I think, can bring us great wealth and prosperity. It can help us optimize, discover, predict, create the future of food. But as responsible innovators, we have to hang on to our humanity. And paradoxically, I think AI can force us to become more human and get in touch with our humanity and ensure that we use these tools in a smart way. I think AI can be used to optimize not just for profits and yield, but optimize the food system for the health of people and planet too. And I look forward to continuing this dialogue with you all on how we can create this better future of food with AI and all of our humanity together. Thank you.
Sensational. Thanks very much, team. Now, through the magic, and our tech team have been amazing, and we're just, going with the flow here. We're going to bring Mike back on. Fantastic. G'day, Mike. Welcome back to the room. Now, we have time. We've got 3 microphones and 2 questions. I know. Talk about collaboration and competition. So it's going to be who's going to put their hand up the quickest, and we're going to have the microphones come speeding to you. So we've got time for 2 questions for Mike. So if anyone would like to chuck their hand up and fire away with a question. Hello. Yeah, fantastic. So Mike, the question is, where do we see the gap where AI hasn't been applied yet? So perhaps the late adopters, or where the biggest opportunity might lie?
Yeah. So when you think about food, right? Food by definition is tactile, right? And so AI can handle a lot of the work that is the kind of thinking work around food, right? So even help with recipe development, but crop optimization, things like that, weather prediction. But there's a limiting factor, I think, in terms of robotics are not advancing as fast as software AI is. And this is something that the people, even the leaders in robotics, are admitting, right? Especially with very kind of fine, high dexterity things like, picking a strawberry. Obviously, there's a lot of big machinery and, automation that happens in food with food processing and agriculture. But the finer kind of things, there's still a long way to go there, right? And even I would argue some of the food things that relate to sensory, right? Because the reason why AI can get so good at chess or the Go game is that it can play billions of games on its own in kind of silicon and improve at a staggeringly fast rate. Things like Go and things like chess have a really easy feedback loop where you know exactly if you won or lost. If you think about food, now I could get an AI to create the most creative 1,000 recipes on the planet that no one's ever seen before, but no one's going to know if they're any good until you actually physically cook all of them and taste them, right? So I'm not saying that it's impossible or out of the realm of possibility. I think it's very distant, because in order to have food truly, quote unquote, take all of our jobs in food, you'd have to have robotics have leaps and bounds where it is today, where it can do everything a human hand can do, which we're not there yet. And then on the sensory side, we would need to find a way to completely recreate the entire experience of sensing food, right? A lot of startups have been doing that on the chemical level, right? Just breaking down flavor into a series of chemicals. But really, flavor is more than chemicals. right? It's not just a biochemical reaction. There's context, there's texture, there's all of these kinds of things. So you would have to model the entire kind of human food experience beyond just the chemistry of it in order to give a computer a feedback loop that says, okay, I've fabricated 1,000 recipes and I thought through how they would all taste through kind of this virtual sensory thing, and these 100 are tasting the best. Again, that's not an impossible task. I just don't think it's going to happen potentially in our lifetimes. It's a long ways off to get there. So I would say that's probably the biggest gap.
Fantastic. Thank you for the question, and thank you, Mike. Oh, I have a hand. Oh, my goodness, I've got 3 hands now. The one at the back was the quickest cab off the rank. So if it's a quick question, we might even get another. How's that? Far away. Oh, microphone on. Fabulous. I don't know if you can yell that far.
Hi. Okay. Hi. Rose from.
The mic is working.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yep.
Great. Really interested in the bionutrient meter, but my question is the analysis, the scientific analysis, being done in real time, or is it reliant on existing nutritional data for beetroots in general? Thanks.
Yes, thanks for the question. So the bionutrient meter is happening actually in real time. It's not actually queuing any databases. It's actually a portable spectrometer. So the same technology you'd see in a lab doing a mass spectroscopy on something to get the whole chemical composition of it. The goal for them, and I'll caveat that this is still in development, so it's not kind of ready for prime time yet, but their prototypes are really trying to do it in real time. I think the use case that they sort of imagine is everyone from farmer to consumer to be able to walk the fields or even walk through a grocery store and just scan an avocado or something like that, open the flesh up, and kind of get a better indication of the nutrient meter. So that's kind of the target they're trying to hit, but it is a project in development. It's a very interesting project, but still in development. But to answer your question, it's attempting to do it in real time.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. And one more question. I think there's one in the middle of the room. Hand up, was it? Oh, you've all gone quiet. No? Yes, fantastic. We've got the microphone racing to you now. Brilliant. I think I see, is that a Landcare logo? No.
Hi, Mike. My question is about predictions. So in our situation here in WA, we have various different growers and they specialise in different things. But all the time, everyone's looking for like the next best big crop. And they're trying to get out of things that aren't profitable and move into crops that are profitable. Is it possible using AI to sort of glean what's going on with social media, what people are buying, to get an idea of what that next big crop is or what the next most profitable crops are?
Yep. So if I understand your question, is it possible to kind of predict what's going to be on the consumer level the next big thing? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, varying degrees of success with that. There have been a few firms and startups that have been doing that, kind of doing, they call it sort of social listening. So that's exactly what you implied, is they're taking intakes of people's social media posts and Twitter feeds and things like that, and trying to infer what the next thing might be. So that stuff is happening. I don't think it's as clear cut as pushing a button and saying, "Oh, avocados are the next big thing." I think they haven't had like a huge degree of success. I know some big brands that have tried to use them in the past, but more often than not, the clients that I work with, they kind of revert towards more classical techniques, meaning just traditional consumer research and things like that. But it is something that's in development now. I mean, I think the issue here is that with data, garbage in, garbage out, right? So really the confidence of what you would have in such prediction completely hinges on the kinds of data that you're predicting, right? You're taking in, right? So, if you've got a million people talking about avocados as a joke, or something like that on social media, and the algorithm doesn't filter that out, well, then you're going to be planting acres of something that was meant to be a joke on social media, right? So that's not a really good recommendation. So I think that's really the key thing to look out for if you encounter things like that is, how good is quality of the data going in, because that's really going to depend on how good of a recommendation you get on the other end.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mike. Round of applause for Mike Lee, everyone. Thank you very much, Mike.